Mystery Wire with George Knapp, Roxanne. I'm Ron Futrell, Carlos Sampson, and John Forrest with us, helping out technically to get this show rocking and rolling. Now, okay, for context on a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about, you can watch the earlier shows that we've done to be able to understand. And by the way, context is important, certainly, with this, to be able to figure out all the people that we're talking about in this case. And Dr. Jim Lakatsky, let's take a picture of him in his early days back in D.C., a young man there. He's, as he says, much older now and wants to get a lot of this material and stuff out. He's using you as a conduit to do that and his books. But you met him 2018 through Harry Reid, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, Senator Reid invited me to D.C. I had a feeling I was going to meet Lakatsky. I had heard his name many times in hushed tones from people associated with the OSAP program, but had never spoken directly to him or met him. And met him there that day. I was kind of like playing spy. I changed hotels. I changed cabs in case somebody was following me. And at that meeting, he gave me this lowdown on the OSAP program, and my mind was blown because I knew that they were focusing on Skinwalker Ranch. I had no idea how big the program was. And it turned out the ranch was a very special place, and it inspired the larger study in a way, but it was only one small focus of what was now the largest acknowledged UFO investigation ever conducted for the U.S. government. I mean, 50 full-time investigators plus other employees, many times larger than, say, Project Blue Book.
And it's been 20 years since The Hunt for the Skinwalker came out, and the books that you've written on this topic, Skinwalker Ranch in northeast Utah, they're tucked away about 500 acres or so, where you've been a few times. I've not been. I got to go sometime.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay, maybe.
I've been there a couple dozen times.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I've stayed there. I've stayed overnight there many times, and I had never seen anything strange. I'm one of the few people that hasn't seen something strange at the ranch. But nearly everyone who goes there and spends a great deal of time has a chance of bringing something home, whether they want to or not. I'm not talking about rocks or souvenirs. I'm talking about something called hitchhikers, which is sort of an attachment that comes along with people who spend any time on the ranch.
Oh, and we're going to talk about that later in this show. The hitchhikers, number one. Also, craft that Dr. Jim Lakatsky has seen that the USA has in its possession. A lot of people have talked about that, wondered about that. You had Bob Lazar early on talking about craft that he saw at Area 51. This was 1989 when he broke that story. You can see our episode 1 to find out more on that. But I talked about that large area, and you talk about Skinwalker Ranch there, about 500 acres, but Native Americans have lived there for years, obviously, in the much wider area. And Dr. Lakatsky talks about how he met with them, talked to them, and found an enormous amount of information from the people who don't have the same inhibitions that we might have.
Right.
They're going to tell him what they've seen over the years, decades, centuries, and what their forefathers have seen. Here's that interview.
And we noticed that Native Americans were much more open about describing phenomenon, but it was generally because, I think it's generally because they had large amounts of relatives, family members, friends, also witnesses. So they were never, I don't remember a case where they were ever unconfirmed. There was always something that there was someone else who saw the same thing, either simultaneously or later on. So they were more open, but there were others. For example, the collision of the blue ball with or multiple blue balls with a individual who was driving through the woods at a relatively high speed, perhaps an unintentional hit or not, serious health reasons, but when gently pushed from their child who was in the car too, young adult, you heard that there were paranormal events starting up at their place.
Maybe I don't want to go there. Now, maybe I'm thinking about having second thoughts about Northeast Utah right now. My wife was born in Logan, so not too far from there. So I know the area. Beautiful, gorgeous area.
Yeah, it is.
But what do you think about what he said there, certainly in interviewing some of the Native Americans?
A couple of things there. So, the purpose of OSAP the DIA study was really about UFOs. It's a UFO investigation. We wanted to know, they wanted to know, are these things a threat? They've been seen all over the world for centuries. Are they a threat to humanity, to the United States? And I think they basically figured out and answered that. But more importantly, they wanted to figure out the technology. How can these machines do what they do, and can we duplicate it? That was the main focus of the program. But as part of that, they were also studying the effects on humans. When humans come into contact with UFOs, how does it affect them physically? A lot of times what they found out is people are harmed, they have physical injuries, they develop very strange immune deficiency diseases, the kind of diseases that pop up 1 in a million kind of things. People who see UFOs or come into contact with them got them a lot more frequent. And then as well, they wanted to see what psychological effects. So when Lukatsky started looking at Skinwalker Ranch and talking to the guys from Bigelow's organization, NIDS, he recognized that there were a lot of people who brought something home with them, what we refer to as hitchhikers, some kind of an attachment. Many of the strangest things that happened at the ranch and in that area of the Uinta Basin had nothing to do with UFOs. They happened after people saw UFOs, and suddenly they're seeing monsters, creatures that don't exist, what you'd call werewolves, things of that sort. The ranchers who had been on the property when Bigelow bought it, they lasted only 20 months. They were bedeviled by paranormal phenomena, trickster activity. Like, you know, the wife who's a vice president of a bank, she'd go shopping, bring the groceries home, take the food out of the bags, put it in a closet, leave the room, and all the stuff was back in the bags again. Or the rancher itself, he's using a post hole digger to dig holes for the ranch, for fences on that property. He takes a break, wipes his brow, sips some water, turns around, the post hole digger is gone. They find it 3 weeks later, 50, 75 feet up in a cottonwood tree. Trickster activity like that drove them crazy. They felt like they were always being watched by some sort of an intelligence there. Lukatsky wanted to know, is that a byproduct of UFOs, or is it some sort of a weapon system that's intended to make people feel crazy, become delusional? He referenced the 2 blue orbs. That was not in the ranch. That was in the Northeast. I won't say if it's Washington or Oregon, but way up there. A professional person driving with their kid through the night, through this dark forest, see these blue orbs over on the side in a field. And as soon as the youngster referenced it and said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, look at that over there," these things paid attention to him, flew at the car, entered the body of the driver, who immediately felt sick. That person gets home later and becomes seriously ill. Two of the physicians who were part of the OSAP program started studying them, and for the next 2 years monitored very serious health consequences.
When we come back, we're going to have more specific. Wow. Okay, more specifics on exactly what was seen, what some of the people said they saw there, and some of the craft that he saw, Jim Lukatsky. And George Knapp, we're so glad to have you here with us, fresh off your, it wasn't that long ago, testimony before Congress.
No, a couple months ago.
A couple months ago that you testified on a lot of these issues, related issues, before Congress. More Mystery Wire with George Knapp when we return. All right, Mystery Wire with George Knapp, now the TV show. Okay, a lot of stuff to get to. We could sit up here and talk for hours and get all this done, but we've got a half-hour limit on these shows that we're going to put them out for you. And again, the book, let's put it up there, Dr. Jim Lukatsky, New Insights. Okay, tell me about the cover of this book before we go into the question you asked him about details. That looks like a triangle to me.
It's not.
But you're telling me it's not.
No.
Hold on a second.
It's a quadrangle there. Jim Lukatsky told me he had asked his AI system to design a cover with a triangle on it. AI gave him a quadrangle. That's 4-sided. It's not 3-sided. If you look at it really closely.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe AI knows something we don't know. I don't know.
Figure that out and put up a New Insights just released, and that's one of the reasons that we're doing a lot on him, because disclosure by the government, very important, and he's been the main guy behind a lot of the threat assessment, a lot of the UFO, the paranormal stuff that the government has been working on for years behind the scenes without our knowledge. And one of the things, let's go straight to this, where George, you're asking the questions about some of the specifics of what they actually saw at Skinwalker Ranch, and it speaks for itself. Let's go.
But the fact that some of these are physical, I mean, there are measurable physical effects from some of these encounters. For example, the one investigator who saw he and his family saw this werewolf thing. I mean, it was physically interacting with the environment. It made things move, right?
And it also the one here in the Washington area, and that's why you have to say paranormal. I mean, what did it get in a train or plane and come to Washington? It left deep scratch marks on the tree it was resting against. There was physical evidence, and there is also out in the surrounding areas and on the ranch physical evidence. There's no two ways about that.
Can you share with us a brief synopsis of two particular incidents that are not as well known as some of the other things that happened at the ranch? One is the stick man. What was that about?
Well, this came directly from the mouth of the ranch manager when I paid my first visit. She said, "Oh, by the way," and this was after she was describing other things, the stick man, she said, would appear in the living room and move over to the dining room where we were sitting. Close by, but would suddenly appear, walk over, and she said, and I question whether I would be scared or not, but it's very thin black stick man. And it seemed to be only interested in what she or her husband were doing. No aggression, no quick movements, just coming over and basically looking over their shoulder.
The monarch butterfly.
The monarch butterfly she described as being a shock to her. She went back into the bedroom, which she showed me the area, and she said she saw a butterfly flying in from the outside toward the window. The thing is, the window was closed, definitely closed. And as it came and went through the glass, and I'm saying went through, it went right through the glass, fluttered over, and landed on a chest of drawers. And then it casually fluttered back out right through the glass.
A lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack. I want to go back. Okay, the stick man and the monarch butterfly, but back to the werewolf thing. Now, this guy goes, from what I understand, one of the government workers, Skinwalker Ranch, has this apparition, sees the werewolf, goes back home, and he's got a hitchhiker. The guy, whatever this was, followed him back. That even his family, he didn't talk about it here. If you've mentioned it to me, his family members saw it.
Yeah. So, the hitchhiker phenomenon, that's what it's been called. It's an attachment. So you go to the ranch, you encounter weird stuff there, and it follows you home. There were 5 intelligence officers during the OSAP study who went to the ranch. All 5 of them had experiences on the ranch, and all 5 of those had this thing follow him home. One of these guys didn't even tell his family about what he had encountered at the property because it's classified. He couldn't tell them. And they start seeing things. It spread to his family almost like a virus. They would see balls of light inside their houses spinning around. They would see these huge, dark, humanoid shapes standing at the foot of their bed. Then they saw a werewolf, a wolf standing on 2 legs. The wife saw it first, holding its arms up like this and leaning on a tree. The kids and the wife saw it the next day, and it left these deep claw marks in the tree outside their house. It was physical and also non-physical. How does it get there from the ranch to this home in the Washington, D.C. area? It's crazy, except the credibility of the people who reported it. And it lasts for years. It stays with a family for years and even spreads like a virus to people around them that they know.
And so, again, emphasize, he didn't talk. He couldn't talk to his family about this, and they're having these apparitions. Is that the right word? Is it okay to call them that? I don't know.
Or they're really apparitions, but they're physical and non-physical.
They looked real.
Yeah, they are real.
They saw them real.
Yeah, they are real. If they all see it and it leaves physical marks, it's real. And a lot of the things that happened at the property were like apparitions. They could be physical or non-physical. They never repeated the same thing. Nothing ever happened the same. A lot of it was like trickster activity, almost to generate a reaction. Some of the things that they saw on the property, the ranchers who lived there before Bigelow got there, seemed designed to generate fear, as if these phenomena fed on fear of some sort. There were things that were seen by the NIDS scientists. You know, these are PhD physicists who saw this stuff, and it followed them home. It followed Bigelow home. It followed Colum Keller home. It followed me home. You know, it's been in my home as well.
You felt it.
I've never seen anything.
You've
My
not
wife
seen
did.
it, but
My wife did.
Wife
Yeah.
has seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, but it didn't surprise you or her
Didn't
because they
surprise-
know the stories.
Well, it certainly, she'd heard some of the stories, but it surprised her when it actually physically happened, you know, twice.
What's the ranch now is in the hands of who no longer Bigelow. It used to be, let's go back in Mormon church history, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Ballard property,
Right.
and that's a famous name within the church. That's Melvin Ballard that owned it, an apostle, and then it's gone over the years.
Myers, it was
to
the
now.
Myers family.
Myers.
It was originally 3 homesteads that were combined into one ranch. I haven't ever revealed the names of the people who lived there before Bigelow bought it, but it's out there. People have figured it out. They were very credible people who had incredible experiences. And after living on what was going to be their dream property, they wanted out, and they got out. Bigelow also wanted it off his plate because it followed him home. It affected his wife and his family. And I think Brandon Fugel, a company called Adamantium, bought it and took it over. They've been doing a great job of carrying on the investigation, but they've seen some pretty strange stuff themselves. And you can see that on their TV show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch on History Channel.
I'll pass on the road trip.
Yeah.
I'll go to Moab. Moab's beautiful, and it doesn't carry the
No hitchhikers.
doesn't carry the same, if you will, hitchhikers. I'm fine with that, and hearing the stories certainly, and being amazed. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about some craft that Dr. Lukaski has seen, alien craft. I think is going to be the heart of the matter here to this episode, and disclosure with the government and that sort of stuff. When we return to Mystery Wire with George Knapp. Okay, we've been hearing from Dr. Jim Lukaski. Fascinating interview with some of the details he has and working and the threat assessment with the federal government on a confidential program to try to figure out what the threat could possibly be from the paranormal, from UFOs, UAPs, and all of those different phenomenon that we're seeing. Certainly, Skinwalker Ranch is crucial to this because he spent time there. A lot of talk about possible craft that the government has in its possession. And I'm going to say you started this discussion, George, with Bob Lazar now 35 years ago here in Las Vegas when he was talking about Area 51 and some of the craft that he has seen there. People question you, what you have gone through, what he has gone through over that time has been phenomenal, not always good, certainly. But now you asked the question. We're going to jump right into it. You asked the question to Dr. Lukaski about aircraft. Does the government have aircraft in its possession that they have not told us about? Here you go.
In your previous book, in our previous book, you dropped a bombshell there out of the blue about how you, I presume, I don't think it says it's you, but it sounds like you informed high-level folks at DHS and a U.S. senator about a particular object, craft. It had no wings, no engine, no fuel tanks, no fuel, and that somehow we humans, U.S. government, had been able to get inside. I know that you've had to been asked 100 times by other people, are you ever going to reveal more information? I guess you can't.
To reveal a little bit more here, there was a second discussion with high-up House representatives too. But I can't go into that because that provided some potential answers.
How do you know it's a craft if it has no fuel tank, you didn't actually see it fly, or, I mean, are you convinced it is some sort of a craft, a machine?
Yes. And by the way, Senator Reid asked the same question, and he was not the senator sitting in the room that I'm describing. No. There is true interest in getting research going and finding out as much as we can learn.
Okay, we get to the heart of the matter here. Does a government have craft? He's saying it does. You've heard that it does. Does a government have alien aircraft that it's not telling us about?
The answer is yes, it
Yes.
does. Yeah, and he was allowed to say, after going through the Doppler process, he was allowed to talk about that one in particular because he'd already shared it with other government agencies. When OSAP ended, after its 27-month run, Dr. Lukatsky, Robert Bigelow, and a couple of their colleagues were trying to find a home for a new version of it. And they settled on DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, whose top science advisors were very much in favor of it, something called Kona Blue. And then after agreeing to go forward with it and be the home for a new program like OSAP, somebody at the top intervened and they said no. But Dr. Lukatsky shared with DHS the idea that he knows for sure we've got at least one of them. Now, that is the exact point that I dived into this topic 39 years ago with Bob Lazar. The idea that we had more than a couple of them that we are taking apart, reverse engineering to figure out if we can duplicate the technology. And at the time I made that story, I was pretty far out on a limb. It seemed like pretty far into the UFO weeds. Even the UFO community was hostile to it. But now, all these years later, it's the center of the conversation. It's the center of new films and reporting by major news organizations. And now I don't feel quite so lonely anymore, Ron.
Oh, I remember it well. In 1989, I was working at another TV station here in town, and when you did that first story that we showed in our first episode, if you go back and you could see it, the interview with Bob Lazar on live TV, you seemed a little surprised even that he said some of the things he said back at that time.
Yeah, I was surprised by Lazar, of course. I was completely out of my depth. I mean, I remember first interviewing him, I used the term reverse archaeology because I'd never heard about reverse engineering. And I'm equally surprised by Dr. Lukatsky coming forward with this information. Not that I'm surprised he would be in the know, just I'm surprised that he was given permission to go ahead and say as much as he has. Now, obviously, it's not enough. We want to know more about it. Where is this craft? How do you know it's a UFO? How did we get inside? And he's not sharing any of that, but I expect him to come forward with further details in the not-too-distant future.
Okay, we have about a minute left. Is this an arm race between countries right now? The Chinese, the Russians, us, maybe other countries involved in trying to reverse engineer this technology first?
It is exactly that, and it's why I tend to have doubts that we're ever going to have total disclosure. We are in a race, and it's a race for survival. The Russians want this technology. The Chinese want it. We want it. And whoever gets it first wins. It would allow world domination if you could build even one of these things. So you can never quite admit, yes, we've got them and we're working on it, because that would acknowledge that you've got it and are working on it, and B, it would give the adversary nation some clues about how far along you are. I went to Russia in the 90s. They were working on it then, trying to do exactly the same thing.
No, and the trips that were fascinating to me when you made those trips and have talked about them. And we're going to have that in future episodes of Mystery Wire. We're going to dive into that. There is so much stuff that we can dive into here that we've just touched the surface, and we've got the latest stuff for you with Dr. Jim Lukatsky here. But, George, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with another
it's fun,
show.
Ron. I hope people will check out Mystery Wire, the website, because there's so much material that we've put together on there. We've worked
for years on it.
With it. Yeah, right.
We've worked for years putting it as a labor of love to put all this stuff together because it's a treasure trove of history, number one. We're going to get into mob stuff because you know a lot about that here in Las Vegas. I got here in '84 when the mob was just getting run out of town, sort of.
Yeah, we're going to expand the parameters of what our mystery really is.
So, okay, thanks for watching, everybody. For George Knapp, I'm Ron Futrell. Bye for now.